Hi guys, welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to be playing around with some Sigma. Now Sigma has really come into their own, I think, the past 1 to 2 years I'd say. They've started creating palettes more in this form and they've created a few now. They've created Corda Rosa, Untamed, Warm Neutrals, Ambience, the Enchanted palette. There's probably some more. Maybe that's it actually, I don't know, but they've created quite a few and this palette really intrigued me. So this is the Sigma Warm Neutrals and the reason it intrigued me is because, boom, I have the Sigma Warm Neutrals Volume 2 that like dates back a couple of years now. This was my go-to travel palette when traveling was a thing. It's starting to become more of a thing, but you know, it's not quite yet. And this used to be my go-to palette. So I thought today we would compare the two and see like the improvements or see the changes, and I'll give you my thoughts. So if that sounds like something you'd like to watch, then keep on watching. And of course, if you are new here, hello, welcome. My name is Meg and I like to talk about all the superficial things in life, all the things that don't really matter but bring us a little bit of joy in the everyday grind that can be life. We talk about makeup, skincare, hair care, homeware, fashion, all those things. So if that sounds like something you'd enjoy, then please hit subscribe, join my little family, and let's get into some palettes. Okay, so the Sigma Warm Neutrals 2 palette, I feel like really had its moment. It was when Sigma had only just started doing eyeshadows, had only just started doing actual makeup and not just brushes. It just looked like this, and obviously inside it then looked like this inside. I really liked this palette. This was one of my favourite palettes, and actually it still is. I love the tones. It's such an easy palette. Of course it all is warm tones, but it is so lovely. It was just something that I loved traveling with because there was a bit of everything. There's some really easy shades, like these two are throwing the crease with something on the lid, or like this on the lid, or I could make it really dramatic and deep with the red and the khaki browns and the fool's gold. I really liked this palette, and it also comes with, I won't blind you, a nice little mirror too. It was really nice. It still is really nice. However, obviously with their rebranding, they've come out with the new palette. So this is the Warm Neutrals, not the Warm Neutrals 2, but just the Warm Neutrals palette. And it of course looks just like their other palettes in terms of the long, skinny format and not like the square format. It's interesting to see even the branding has changed over time. You know, like Sigma used to be written like this, and now it's written all like very geometric, I suppose you could say. My camera's going to focus there. It looks really nice. I'd say this packaging isn't anything special. It's just smashed eyeshadows on the front of a palette. It's nothing particularly special, nothing to write home about. But they've still got some things that are the same, like the shade names on the back. Obviously this looks a bit more luxe because it's got that shininess, and this was just plain packaging, like plain cardboard. This is definitely more luxe packaging than this. Like when we go into here, we have the brush, a mirror as always, and just like all the shades are just looking a little bit nicer, a little bit fresher, a little bit more pigmented. These are kind of just looking a little bit of their time, but that's fine. I've got to say though, I do prefer how thin this palette is in comparison to this one. However, this one has a brush in it, and it's not like that thick, so you know, I still think this one is the better one because you look at the thickness, it's just slightly thicker, and this one has a brush in it. So yeah, like I'm really impressed so far. I haven't even dived into this palette because I really wanted to pair these off against each other and see the quality and how it's changed. So in the classic we got 12 shades, and in the new one we get 14. So there's 2 new shades. Let me quickly work out what they are. So I've just had a look, and 2 new shades are Chilies and Amaranth. This, oh no, that's this one right here. So it's really nice berry, raspberry toned, and this nice deep brown with a red undertone. So I feel like these do not look out of place whatsoever. They really add to the palette, and I think this was a good move, adding these 2 shades. It's still very reminiscent of the original without feeling like it's throwing the palette off at all. So yeah, let's swatch these side by side and just see if the colours have changed, if the quality has changed that much, and then we'll do one on one eye and one on the other. And yeah, okay, I'm excited. Let's do this. Let's swatch it up. So into the first palette we have Humble, and that's just a bone matte white. And then taking Humble from the other palette. Oh wow, that is so much creamier. You can see how much more like creamy and thicker and more pigmented that is. Wow. Obviously please bear in mind that this palette is significantly older than the new one, so of course there's going to be a little bit of wear and tear in terms of shadows being less pigmented than they were, but I just wanted to show you the colour tone more than anything. I'm kind of expecting the new palette to be a bit more pigmented because it's going to be a newer formula. But the second shade I'm going to go into is Charmer. And this is kind of like a very pale pinky pearlescent shade. And then Charmer from the second palette. Oh wow, yeah, that's so much more shinier, look at that. They're actually slightly different. The newer one is, wow, look, so much more sheeny. I'd say the original is actually a little bit more pink and the newer one is more of a shell, so you get the pink undertone but not as much pink shimmer in it. The next shade we have is Beaming, which is kind of a little bit like Charming but just slightly deeper, and it looks more metallic in this palette. So that is Beaming. Like I said, very similar to Charming, just a little bit more apricot-y and bit deeper. Now Beaming is actually down here in the newest palette. I nearly dipped into Rouge and I was like, that's not what the shade is, but Beaming is actually down here and it feels so much different in comparison to the old one. Yeah, look at that. That's so much different. That's so much different. You can really see it's kind of the same vibe but just much deeper and has a bit more depth to it. Do you know what, dare I say, I actually enjoy the original a little bit more, but I enjoy the fact that they're not duping too many of the same colours. The next shade we have is Toasty. Now I actually really love this shade. When I took this palette on holiday with me in 2019, this shade flung through my crease. I don't know why, but it's like the perfect tone for my crease, so it's like a barely there shadow, and it just, yeah, it makes my eyes look really nice. So I'm intrigued to see what the newer one looks like. So this is Toasty, as you can see, really smooth, really pretty colour. And then Toasty in here. Oh, interesting. It's slightly different tone. I'm just going to put a little bit more on and see if I can layer it up. It's slightly different. Huh. I'd actually say it's less deep. I actually prefer the original Toasty. Yeah, I prefer the original. That's a nicer tone for me. I think this is a little bit wishy-washy, but maybe you wouldn't necessarily know on the eyes. The next shade is Bittersweet, which is this beautiful gold metallic. I really like this shade. It's really nice. And then of course we've got Bittersweet in this palette. Oh, this feels so much creamier. Oh wow, you can really feel the difference. Oh my goodness, yeah, I much prefer this one. Oh wow, that's so pigmented. I think I still prefer the tone of the original, but the consistency and the quality of the newer one is much nicer. Again, the newer one is much deeper. The older one is more of a lighter coppery tone, and the newer one is a deeper brassy tone. Still really nice. We've then got the shade Henna, which is this lovely like cocoa warm chocolate brown. I really like this shade for deepening up my looks with this palette. Really smooth. Even to this day, like look how smooth that matte is and how pigmented it is. It's lovely. Henna in this one definitely looks much lighter, which is interesting, but it feels just as creamy. Oh, that's interesting. They've got it pretty bang on. Like, look at that. You can just about see cool toned hints here and more warm toned hints here, but I mean, you wouldn't know on the eyes. That's pretty bang on. That's good. This one's much creamier though. I'm going to switch to the other hand for the rest of them, but the next shade is Iconic. So original was on the left. Right, okay, so this is Iconic, and this is like a brown red based metallic. Oh, so pretty. Look at that. Woo. And then Iconic in here. I feel like this is so cack-handed because I'm a right-handed person. I feel like I'm really trying to concentrate. Oh wow, they've got that really bang on. That looks like the same shade. In fact, this one probably looks a tiny smidgen bit richer, but again, you wouldn't know. That looks like the same shade. Amazing. Love that. The next shade we have is Rouge, which I really liked Rouge for like spicing up and adding a bit more colour to my looks, especially when I'm on holiday. I don't really care too much about what my makeup looks like. Not now, I don't anyway. So I felt like the red in this palette really helped me add colour without feeling too crazy or having to think about it too much. So this is Rouge, really pretty berry red matte. Sorry that I blended in with this one a bit too much, sorry. I'll tidy it up, there we go. And then we have Rouge in this one, which looks literally identical in the pan. By the way, I don't ever push too hard in my pans, I just like to coat my finger nicely. I never really rub hard, I'm quite delicate with my shadows. So this is the new one. Actually, I think although they are practically identical, you wouldn't know. I think the newer one is a little bit more vibrant, and the older one is just a tiny little bit more murkier, but I mean, come on, they look identical, but I'm just really giving you the fine details. This one just looks a tiny bit more vibrant, Again, that might be the age of the shadows, who knows. Probably wouldn't know if they were on the eyes. We then have the shade Passion Fruit, which was really great for blending out that rouge shade. It's like a muted, dusty rose pink. So there is Passion Fruit. Really, really pretty. Really, really nice. However, in this palette, it looks really, really pale. So I feel like it's going to look completely different. It might look the same swatching it. Huh. I'm going to add a touch more. I don't think I covered my hand properly. Yeah, I mean, it's bang on. It's just a tiny, tiny bit more sheer, I think, but then it's more consistent, so, I mean, again, you wouldn't know on the eyes. Yeah, I mean, like, that is undoubtedly the same shade. The next shade is Russet, which is a shade I never really used. It was a deep purpley matte infused with raspberry pink glitters. And I never really used this one, I don't know why. But that is what she looks like. Still really pigmented, and I don't know if you can get that hint of glitter there. I can see it in real life. Can you just about see that glitter? Oh gosh, it's not showing up on camera. You can see it in real life. I mean, you probably wouldn't see it on the eyes. That's the truth of the matter. Again, Russet in this palette looks much lighter, and they have taken, I don't think they've taken the glitter out, but they've definitely put finer glitters in it. Oh, so see, you can see the glitters far more in this shade. Apparently not on camera, you can't. But yeah, undoubtedly the same shade. They've done really well. They've done really well. I started off so neat with this hand, and now I've kind of gone a bit smeary with this one. It's because I'm not left-handed, man. We then have the shade After Hours, which is this deep, beautiful green khaki matte shade. And I really, really like this one. It's very grungy. And then After Hours in this palette, I've got to say, I think I prefer the tone of this one just in the pan, like just from how it looks in the pan. Can you see like the difference on my finger? This one looks a bit more green, this one looks a bit more brown. Interesting if the swatch is different. This one's much more, it was easier to put on. To be honest with you, you probably wouldn't be able to tell, but I can tell a smidgen difference. But again, like on the eyes, you're really not going to be able to tell the difference. And then finally we have the shade Fool's Gold, which I've got to not lie, this is a really gritty shade. I really like it, but it did create a lot of fallout on me. This is almost like a brown-based green flip, almost like a blue-brown, but it's like green-brown. I really, really like it. And this is what it looks like. I really wanted this. Every single time I used it, I wanted it to be more metallic than glittery. This is like, I mean, I'll swatch it a bit more, but this is kind of got glitter chunks in it. It's very chunky and very dry. I never liked this shade, like its formula, but it's a really pretty shade, so I always wished it was better than it was. Whereas in this palette, I can just see that it's going to be better. I can just see. Oh, it still feels gritty. That's interesting. Interesting. So, oh no. I think it's even worse. Oh no. I mean, it's kind of the same, and I wanted it to be a better formula. If anything, I think I prefer the original. I think it's at least a little bit more glittery. Ooh, okay, damn. So these are the comparisons of all 12 shades. The left side on both my hands is the original, and the right side is the newer palette. I think they've done a really, really good job. You can barely tell. Like, there's some slight changes on some of the shades. Sorry, these are a bit messy, but I don't think you can really tell, if I'm that honest. Like, once these are on the eyes, there's no way. There's no way. So I think they've done a really good job. You can actually definitely see the difference in just some quality elevation there, and smoothness in a couple of the shades. But I'm really, really impressed. I'm just going to swatch those two shades in this palette that were extra, that we haven't got in the original. And those two shades were Chilies and Amaranth. So Chilies is like a deep reddy brown, and Amaranth is like, I'd call it a raspberry metallic. Really, really pretty. Ooh. And I'm just going to swatch these here for you. Wow, that shade is stunning. But those are really nice additions to the palette. I think they look really in keeping with it all. You wouldn't double take and think, what the hell are those? They're really in keeping with it all. So yeah, I'm actually really impressed. I'm really impressed. I'm actually more impressed by the older palette keeping up with the newer one. I'm gonna go wash all of this off, and then we're gonna do one on one eye and one on the other, and we're gonna see if you can tell a difference. I think just to save some time, I'm just gonna apply these shadows and put the name of which shade I'm using on the screen, and yeah, I can just speed up and it can cut out all the blabbering, and then we can see which one you think looks nicer on the eyes. I personally think they're gonna look identical. I think I've just bought the same palette twice. Okay, so that's both eyes done. I think you can definitely tell a difference, but it's a very, very subtle difference. I think if someone was wearing this eyeshadow out, I'd kind of be like, oh, they're a bit heavy with one shade on one eye than the other. But I don't think they look like two different palettes. They definitely look like the same thing, the same vibe. So I'm gonna go put some mascara on and just spray my face. It's very dry today, and then we'll discuss. So here it is with mascara. Just before I zoom out, I've just put some mascara on, so it's kind of like completed the look a little bit more, grounded the lash line. Yeah, I think you can just tell a slight difference just on the lid there. This one on the left, or your right, is much brighter, and the one on the left is a little bit deeper. So have your little guesses now. Which one do you think is which? Which eye do you think is which? Which one is the original and which one is the new version? Which one do you think? Guess in the comments now. I'm gonna run out of time in this song that I'm creating, and you're gonna comment down below with your guesses. Okay, there's enough time. So the answer is, it's a big deal. The answer is I used the original on the left hand side and the newer version on the right hand side. The shade that threw it all off was Beaming. So I used Beaming, that one there, and Beaming in this palette, which is a bit deeper. This one right here. What do I think? I think that If you've got this palette, you do not need this palette. If you don't have this palette and you wanted this palette and now that this has come out, you're not going to be disappointed, it's the same thing. Have I got two palettes that are identical? 98% yes. 98% yes. I actually, believe it or not, do prefer this one. But then is that just because it's an old, true, classic, you know, be buried with me palette? Probably. I really like this one. I still like the compactness of it. I still really like that. I do like the new palette though. And these are sleeker. This is more practical. I think I'm definitely going to keep this because in my head I was thinking, shall I, you know, if they're both the same, if they're both the same quality or this one's even better, I'll just declutter this one, you know, tidy it up, you know, tidy all the pans up and give it to a friend to use. But like that 2% is making me want to keep both. And the reason for that is I think the newer palette has some really nice additions, the two shades here, which kind of pull the looks together. I think this palette is a tiny bit more pigmented and a tiny bit more creamy for certain select sort of shades. But yeah, like I said, if you've got this palette, you do not need this. If you want this, I promise you, you can still get the same looks with this palette. I promise you. Yeah, like they're the same. And I wasn't expecting them to be very different, if I'm honest. I wasn't expecting them to be dramatically different, but I was expecting a tiny bit more of a quality upgrade or like in formulation and just maybe a bit more richer tones, but the tones are exactly the same, which is good. That's very good. I wouldn't have wanted two very different palettes if they're going to be called the same thing. But to me, it actually, more than anything from this little experiment, this has told me that this palette is still the same good quality that Sigma have got now, and that Sigma haven't changed their quality that much. You know, the quality is still good. I think they've just upped their quality a tiny bit. They haven't completely given us like a what's it called, like a curveball, you know? So it's been interesting. It's been interesting. Like I said, palette on the left, palette on the right. Looks like this. So yeah, I'm really happy with it. I'm going to keep both of them because I think this is still a really nice travel palette. I don't particularly need this extra. I think this is much easier to pack in my makeup bag than this is for some reason. It just feels like long and skinny is definitely difficult to pack than a bigger chubba nub. But yeah, that's about it for today. That's all I wanted to do, was just test the quality difference and see how different the two palettes are from one another. The answer is not very different. Not very different at all. Tell me what your thoughts are below if you've got both palettes or you've got this original one and you were thinking about picking up the latest one. If you wanted this video, I mean, has this been helpful at all? I'm not sure, but yeah, I'm glad I've been able to do this video. If I knew what I know now, I probably just wouldn't have picked this up, but for the sake of YouTube's, it's always nice to have a bit more. I will be doing a Sigma series, I think, when I find the time to kind of do a palette every single day and doing a couple of looks per palette just to really test out the entire range and give every palette their moment. But that's all I'm going to say about it today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate you. Thumbs this video up if you found this helpful or interesting. And tell me what your thoughts are down below about the whole rebranding. If you like the rebranding and what your thoughts are about coming out with a palette that already technically existed. Are you happy about it? Do you think it was a bad move? Let me know. Subscribe if you haven't already and ring the bell because then you'll be notified of all the videos I upload. I upload every single week and you wouldn't want to miss out on more content from me. No, you would not. No, you would not. Thank you guys. Take care, stay safe, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.